Hello and welcome to The Agenda on Labour Social with me, Graham Hughes, and Phil Morehouse. How you doing, Phil? You all
Hello, a
right,
lot better than Rishi Sunak again.
mate? Well, he's not had a good one, has he? Has he? It's been
Utterly
a bit,
insane. I'll
yeah,
tell you, do you know how insane it is?
go on.
Because we're now on what, probably, I don't know whether you'd call it officially day 16 or what of the campaign today, but we've got just over 2 weeks. And I would argue that every day of the campaign has been net negative for Sunak. Some days have been worse than others, but I think everyone has been net negative. Yesterday was his free pass. It was
Yeah,
easy. All he had to do was turn up, shake hands with veterans, watch British paratroopers. He could have a huge montage. He's rubbing shoulders with world leaders, talking to
yeah,
Zelensky. He didn't have to do anything. He didn't have
yeah.
to do anything. And all of the, CCHQ would have done it all for him. And it would have, Keir Starmer on the sidelines, he'd have been there, but very much on the sidelines because Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister. He's centre stage.
Yeah.
And it would have been the one day of the campaign that was net positive for Sunak. And he somehow turned it into the worst political mistake of his entire life a few weeks before a general election.
So just before we came on, he actually gave a speech he did an interview about why he didn't turn up. He kept on saying that he didn't want to politicise it, even though he was going back to do a political
Well,
interview.
well, yesterday also he on that day was plugging his idea for some sort of travel concessions for veterans anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he
yeah,
politicised it yesterday.
yeah. And also, it's come out that, and this was put to him, that actually he was intending not to go at
Mhm.
all. Is that true? You were planning not to go at all, and you had to be basically cajoled into going by the French president. And he said, "No, that's not true. So somebody's lying." And would Rishi Sunak lie to us? Would he lie to
Um,
you?
yeah, it's almost like we've got a letter that proves he's a liar. That Keir Starmer, he won't because he's too boring, but he should 100% staple to his tie for the next 1-to-1.
Yeah,
Which is not this Friday. There is a debate. I say this Friday today. There is a debate today, but that is the parties' debate. So neither Sunak nor Starmer are going to be in attendance for that.
yeah, yeah,
But when there is another 1-to-1, which there will be, presumably
yeah.
on BBC, Starmer should absolutely staple it to his tie or paperclip it to his tie if he doesn't want to ruin a good tie.
Well, Starmer was there for the whole event. So
Yeah, of
was
course he
the
was.
Chancellor of Germany.
Yeah.
This was a D-Day event
Yeah.
where basically that was the first foothold onto continental Europe by the Allied troops, allowing them to basically go all the way
Yeah.
into Berlin and take out, Hitler's
But also,
people.
I mean, that was the weird thing about his apology. I need to find the exact words again now. But he said,
the Twitter apology or
the Twitter
interview?
apology. I haven't seen the other one. He said at the end of it, after his waffle, after the conclusion of the British event in Normandy, it's like the D-Day landings was an Allied invasion force,
Yeah.
and therefore the commemoration is an Allied event as well.
Yeah.
It's not just an Allied event, as you say. Germany's involved in their commemorations.
The people that we were fighting against were there.
Yeah, because
but
they
our Prime
also
Minister
had
wasn't.
soldiers die.
There's this amazing picture. It's on the front cover of one of the newspapers, and it's Biden and his wife and Macron and his wife walking, and behind them are two planes flying up, and they've got the French flag and the American flag behind them. It's an incredible image, and our Prime Minister should have been there.
Yeah.
I don't like him, but he should have fucking well been there.
Yeah.
And this is it now, as far as I'm concerned, for any support from the Brexiteers, the UKIP people,
Oh, yeah,
the refuck people. They're done with it now.
They will be. If Sunak is still chasing after Reform UK voters after today, it was stupid anyway. If you look at the polling, it's folly anyway. It's always been folly. Yeah. But if he's even attempting to chase after them now, he really is an idiot. He is an idiot. I actually can't imagine. I couldn't imagine anyone being able to rise to the top of politics at all in any country.
Yeah.
In any country, advanced or otherwise, that can be this politically naive.
Yeah.
It just shows what a bad system we've got.
Bit of bad geography there. Obviously, the Russians were fighting in Europe, but I meant, from the Western Front, for the Western.
Yeah.
The first foothold in France, should we say, just to be absolutely clinical on that one. But yeah, it was a momentous day. Tens of thousands of Brits died, and for him to snub the last, this, don't forget as well, possibly the last time there's going to be
The
people
big
who are actually
one,
there, people who actually took part in it are going to be there, because the youngest one is going to be 98.
yeah.
Unless they lied about their age, which was a bit more difficult in World War II.
Well, even that, it would have been very difficult to have been 2 years old and lying about your age.
And then if they were 16, they could be 96 now.
Well, but, I mean, for the 90th anniversary, they'd then still be 106. And yeah, it's probably not fit enough to travel, even if they're still with us.
Yeah. So just that clarification there earlier for Peter M. Trevor is saying the rest of the cabinet are getting in on the act, with Children's Minister admitting he doesn't know how much child benefit is, whilst announcing that the higher earners can keep more of it. Yeah, Trevor, that was this morning on the Nick Ferrari show on LBC, and well,
that was it, wasn't it? It was like, oh no, we'll shit the bed. How are we going to get out of this? I know, we'll announce another tax break for the rich.
Yeah. But didn't know how much child benefit was.
Yeah.
And this is Children's Minister. Not across their brief at all. They don't read anything. They don't do anything. They are lazy and incompetent. I mean, ideology aside, I mean, it's kind of good that they're so bloody useless. But just in terms of being good politicians, none of them are.
That's because that's not the criteria for seniority these days. The criteria for promotion is wedded to this Brexit ideology, which means that competence goes out the window, because that's no longer a factor. Because if you are, if you are someone who'd be suitable to be a minister, you automatically can't really believe in Brexit.
Yeah.
Well, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Shug in the chat saying, I'm beyond angry. As an ex-squaddy, I am furious. Those that fought before us during and after D-Day didn't have the choice to leave early. My granddad fought on D-Day. And I think there's possibly millions of people who feel the same way right now. They're just utterly disgusted with this joke of a prime minister who nobody voted for, don't forget. Not even his own party voted for him.
That's mostly the way it works. So. But he has. I mean, this. If you were to like take control of Rishi Sunak and say, we've got our sleeper agent in place, we want him to destroy the Conservative Party, you could probably do nothing more destructive in terms of their core support than this.
Yeah.
Than to actually shit on a major military commemoration with elderly veterans in tow.
Yeah, it's like taking the piss out of Major Tom or Captain Tom. Jeff True says in his apology he was directly challenged if he'd ever considered pulling out of the British event. He categorically said no. This will bite him on the arse.
Because he's presumably gone through this morning, if he's got any brains at all. Because it'll be a case of, what do they know? What can I deny that won't immediately come out? Because loads of journalists were coming out with this. He told the French government he wasn't even attending last week. Now, it seems to me that if there's any definitive proof, and lots of journalists were accepting this as fact, so if there's any definitive proof that he actually contacted the French government, I mean, they're not going to leak it because, that's not diplomatic. But if there's anything that does emerge that proves he did actually try and get it out of it altogether, I mean, put it this way, I had a little look today on Google Trends, and I looked up, when people have searched the term Canada 1993 in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few little spikes. Yeah, there's a bit of one. So I need to wait, obviously, a few days, because at the moment it's like estimates. You're not going to get, but in like a week's time, if I go back, when's the latest?
Canada 1993.
Yeah, we can have up to 1st June. So maybe I have to wait another week to find out. Yeah. It may well be they have to readjust the scale.
So this is when the Conservative Party of Canada, which had been around for nearly 100 years at this point, got absolutely decimated. They were the ruling party. They got absolutely decimated. They went down to 2 seats in 1993, and within a couple of years, the party had been dissolved. There was no Conservative Party. There's now a new Conservative Party, but it's not, it's born from the ashes of the old one. I've got a few corrections coming in. Someone pointed out, people were in Italy. British troops were in Italy. And also, it wasn't just the Russians. Let's say the Soviets. Can we say the Soviets? And that would include people from Ukraine and Belarus and Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan and Armenia and everyone else. Was that bad geography or bad geography? Asked one angry pagan. Starting the badger emojis early. And it's going to be interesting. This is Glenn, because there's a debate tonight, isn't there? It's going to be interesting to see Penny Pugwash try and excuse this.
I think it's going to be quite tragic, the debate tonight. It's going to be awful, but we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm going to be doing a watch party tonight from 7:30 of this debate tonight. There's going to be 7 leaders there, including Farage, who I hate. I might get my old frog emoji, and just every time he's on, I'll just cover his face with that. But and then that'll be going straight into the last Labour Social, the Labour Social, because we're changing the name of the channel. Are you going to be around tonight, Phil, for the last Labour Social?
I'm not sure.
Ah,
maybe.
Come on. Go on, late. Come on.
But it depends if I'm busy.
Fair enough. Right.
I may or may not. It depends if I get my work done.
Jock James is coming in with a clarification. One reason why German chancellors are visiting these events is a speech of our former president, 1985, when he said in Parliament that Germans were also liberated. That was a very big deal.
Yeah.
And that's true, actually, isn't it? Because if you think if Farage and his creeps, his BUF creeps, got into power, I would want to be liberated from them.
Yes, yeah.
So, good point, well made. John Hart, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Far worse than Michael Foot's donkey jacket moment. I mean, this is the biggest political gaffe during an election campaign in history. I can't think of a bigger one.
I mean, I think there was... I don't know. I'm pretty sure there was a prime minister in the late 19th century who had everything seem to go wrong for them. But I think they were just circumstances of bad luck rather than the architects of their own demise. I've forgotten who it was now.
Was that Arthur Balfour who lost his seat?
No, because that was like early 20th century. I've got an idea this was late 19th century. But I can't remember. I don't even remember if they lost. I just remember there was just like this huge sequence of really unfortunate events that happened to this politician. But it was a proper really bad luck type situation rather than their own. I've forgotten who it was.
In 1906, after the Boer War, which wasn't very popular, and no one seems to remember it or want to remember it, it's the first place that I believe we invented the idea of concentration camps.
Yes.
Civilians in, which is nice.
Yeah.
Arthur Balfour, he was the Conservative prime minister, and he lost his seat. That's how badly they did in 1906, and that's we want Balfour 1906, and we want Canada 1993. Is there a risk of the Reform Party taking over the Tory Party if they do so badly?
Yes. That is the big risk. And that is why the One Nation Conservatives really ought to think very carefully, because I've seen a suggestion today. I was actually writing a bit of a script on it. That, what these Conservatives may do is feel that Reform UK burn themselves out over time. I think they need to be very careful, because after the election, they'll probably be just about still strong enough to fight and recapture their party but they'll have to fight. They'll actually have to take on the swivel-eyed loons, because if they don't, you can imagine Nigel Farage doing to the Conservative Party, setting it up as basically Reform UK, but with the brand. So look at Reform UK. It's not a political party. They talk about members. They don't have members. They have subscribers. Those subscribers do not get a say in any policy discussion forums or any candidate selection on any level. They don't get any say. If you want to be a candidate for the party, you don't just do what you do in another party and just throw your hat into the ring. You pay a fee and fill a form in. And then someone who owns the party decides, or someone who's employed by someone who owns the party decides. Wow. You can imagine that coming to the Conservative Party. Nigel Farage, who persuaded basically a load of voters to vote away their country and their own lives, vote themselves into servitude. You can sort of imagine him persuading Conservative, like what I would view, what Nigel Farage is aiming to do to the Conservatives at this election. It is like the equivalent of burning the Reichstag, at which point, at some point, he emerges and says, you need to give me all this executive power. Of course, I'll give it back once the emergency is over. But, we need to suspend all the normal, because there are Conservative MPs actively wanting Nigel Farage to join with them. So the idea is, it's really clear, Reform UK want to put themselves in a position where they can say to Conservatives, you cannot win another election unless you deal with us. And you can only deal with us if you basically become us. Nigel Farage takes over the Conservative Party, persuades them that the way the Conservative Party is no good because there's too many wets in the process. So persuades them, you can trust me, I've got your interests at heart. We basically need to modernise the party. By modernising means give himself complete autocratic control of the party, at which point he has that brand. I don't think it will work for winning power as such. You have to be very careful about saying these things. But Nigel Farage is really popular with his cult, but he's also very unpopular with everyone else.
Yeah.
And there's this assumption that he can combine the people he attracts with the people the Conservative Party attracts, as if you could just weld those voters together, but you won't. You will just lose a load of those voters. So as long as Labour do not elect another Nana as leader, then it won't work as a project, but you could still see Nigel Farage taking over the Conservative Party.
Yeah. Have you seen
that is a real risk.
Have you seen the Farage pledges? Have you seen them from?
I've seen their thing where they put down a load of things and they say, "Oh, and we'll save X amount of money, and our pledges cost X amount."
I'm going to bring that up
on the.
I'm going to bring that up on the screen now for you, so you should be able to see it. But first of all, I'm just going to give kudos to Anthony Fisher. Thank you very much. Johnny Mercer has defended Sunak, which is just weird because he's ex-military, but whatever. He's an officer, different class. Matt Can't Play. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Do you think there's a risk of a backlash if Labour get a majority as large as the polls suggest? Even with that many seats, they can't please everyone. Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter whether you got 50 extra seats or 100 or 150.
Well, the way I view it is, if you have 350 seats, you're sort of okay. You can probably get your manifesto through, but you probably have arguments with amendments. If you have 370 seats, that should be nice and comfortable. If 370 seats, you basically need, there'd need to be about 100 of your own MPs rebel against you to cause you problems. So you're fine. Yeah. 370 is fine. 400 is a luxury. Anything above 400 is probably an arse ache, because then you have more discipline problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
But again, I think I'd rather that Starmer and the Whips had headaches than we had Tories.
Okay. Right. I'm just sorry, that was a bit weird. I'm just sending the image of what we're chatting about here over to Phil for a moment. But first, I'm going to do another couple of super chats. Thank you very much to Frank, who says the Canadian Reform Party essentially took over the Progressive Conservative Party after the 1993 election. So that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Paul Ewan, £2 super chat. Thank you very much. Contribution to Sunak's airfare. Sod off, Rishi, which I think we can all get on board with. Right, here's the Reform manifesto. Can you see that, Phil? And some of it looks quite reasonable.
I'd read it before.
Yeah. Zero income tax for the first to 20,000.
Yeah, but the thing is, where they say they're going to make savings, they're talking about policies that will cost us more.
Yeah. So, but I can see how a lot of their base who are earning very little. Okay, so I'm earning £27,000. Well, I'm only going to be taxed on the first 20,000. I can see why that's attractive. Scrap VAT on energy bills. That's attractive. Vote reform to save every worker £1,500 a year. And then if you look at the very bottom of the picture, it's right down here. It's like funding of Reform UK plans. And this is the interesting stuff. Scrap net zero and subsidies. So are they going to scrap all energy subsidies or just the ones to green power?
It doesn't matter. They don't have to say no one's going to scrutinise it. Journalists can't be asked because they're not going to win.
Yeah, that's true. Stop bank interest on quantitative easing reserves. Save £5 in every 100 spent by slashing government waste. Cut foreign aid by 50%.
That'd be a good trick. We don't have any.
Yeah. Reform benefit system and get 1 million people back to work. How do they plan to force 1 million people
Again,
who can't work to go back to work?
None of these things are genuine plans because they know they're not going to win power. They know it's not their aim to win power. It's their aim to take over the Conservative Party. At which point, yes, they think they will win power then. But this is,
Yeah, and it's all pie in the sky. Accelerate transport infrastructure in North. Okay. How?
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing. I mean, this is just a wish list because they know they're not going to.
And also, if you're talking about this level of investment, you need workers for it. Where are you going to get those workers from with zero immigration?
Yeah, and I
Because
love
that's
this.
what we're talking about, zero net immigration.
Here's one thing that pissed me off. It says life skill classes at school. That would be for the national curriculum. And I keep saying this because it's really important that everyone gets it, gets to understand what they're doing here. Richard Tice and Nigel Farage went to private school. Private schools don't have to follow the national curriculum. So when you've got your idiot Sunak who went to Winchester saying, "Oh, kids are going to study maths until they're 18," they're not going to study maths. They are not going to study maths. Sorry, his kids aren't going to study maths. Yours are, because they can make rules for the national curriculum that the private schools don't have to follow. So yeah. Anyway, right, I'll get rid of that. Moving on. Yeah. So what would you do if you were advising Sunak right now? What would you say to him?
It's really hard. Like, I think it's long past the point where you can do anything. Something like this. I'd quit, in all honesty, because everything he does, he can't do the simplest thing. Like, if I were an advisor to Rishi Sunak before this, I would have told him he cannot come home early. I would have told him, why would you even want to do, like, even this interview? If I was to advise him today, if he just took me on and paid me a fee to say, right, what one thing can I do? It would be to beg ITV to scrap that interview and promise to do another one where in it he focuses on a bit of like humility instead of, I'm not a liar. We've got this letter. I'm not a liar. Are you calling the permanent secretary to the Treasury a liar? No, but I'm not a liar. Imagine that interview actually going live next Wednesday, just bringing this all back up again. So I would advise that interview do not ever see the light of day. But other than that, I don't know, because it's destroyed his entire. Like, if you think about what he has in his, or what he could ever have had in his locker, he's abandoned the possibility of having delivery. He had enough time as Prime Minister to have delivered something, to have made something work. He's neglected that. He hasn't done that. The next thing is trust. The getting people to believe that you mean your promises. Well, he's a proven liar, so he's lost that. I mean, that's probably it anyway. But you could always add in, has the best interests of the country at heart, means well. But unfortunately, he destroyed that yesterday as well. Yes. Doesn't have the best interests of the country. So he's destroyed any platform he could possibly have stood on. She's gone.
What's gone?
He's gone. His chances. He hasn't got anything to work.
Oh, sorry. With. I think his chancellor's gone. I was like, what?
No. Well, no. If I were his chancellor, I'd be gone. I think I'm going to lose my seat anyway. I might as well go on holiday early.
Brad W, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Penny Mordaunt is forecast to lose her seat, which goes to show when you live by the sword. ... Very good. I like that, Brad. Thank you very much for the super chat as well. Peter M is saying, shut up, Prime Minister. Pineapple Boy is saying, Rishi's kids will study in California anyway. Exactly. It doesn't affect them. I always keep saying this because it's so true that none of these punitive things that these Tory politicians come out with, like Brexit or like, changing the national curriculum or anything like that, it never affects them. When it does affect them, like having to wear a mask, having to lock down, having to get vaccinated, having to pay VAT on school fees, they go bananas. They can't handle it. No, not me. No. We can change other people's lives. We can ruin other people's lives. We can disrupt other people's lives, but not ours. No. Yeah. I was born rich, don't you know? And I'm just like, I just hate them. I just hate them so much. Nick in the chat saying EU MSs are unlikely to contemplate UK Article 49 ascension with the spectre of Farage as a de facto leader of the opposition plus first past the post looming. EEA stroke single market, a far more realistic goal for now. Also, still technically Brexit. Phil, you've said this a bunch of times. The only way we're getting back into the EU is if we can get the Tories on board.
Yeah. It has to be politically settled. It takes a long time to join the EU. It doesn't matter that we used to be a member. It doesn't take us. We won't get a fast track. It'll take us time to join, and that process can be disrupted by an election and a government forming that says no, we don't want this. So until every country that joins the EU, everyone agrees. Everyone that could form a government agrees it's something we should do. Yeah. We don't have that.
Yeah.
We have to either destroy the Tories and not let, Tory Mark II emerge, or we have to persuade them that Brexit was a shit idea and we should reverse it.
Yeah. And that has to be done before we can rejoin. And it was a bit annoying, though, last night on Question Time. I don't know if you saw it, Phil, but Fiona Bruce said when Caroline Denver. Sorry, I'm saying the wrong name here. What's her name? Dana, the co-leader of the Greens, was talking, and she said about Brexit and how damaging it was because someone asked a question about it directly. And Fiona Bruce cut in and said, but people voted for it. And like Femi did a video today and he was like, it was 8 years, 5 prime ministers, and three general elections ago. Like, oh my God.
But that's what the Conservatives are. Everything is Brexit now. Everything has if you ask them, what is a conservative, what is an aspect of conservative ideology, everything now has to be sacrificed if it's not consistent with this hard Brexit ideology.
Yeah,
it's like their defining feature, and it's why the Conservatives, they need to shed themselves of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another super chat coming from Rory Barr, his first super chat. Thank you very much for the £10. I've not heard anyone contemplate the possibility that the Lib Dems and the Tories could win the same number of seats. How would this complicate established parliamentary precedent? PMQs, for example.
It is a good question. If it was exactly the same, I'll tell you what, it'd be very messy. What I suspect would happen is the Speaker of the House would have to take some advice as to which one has the more support. I suspect it will not be the Conservatives. So I think that would still end up with being Ed Davey, maybe with support from like SNP and Greens and so on. Yeah. But what it would mean is at some point during the next Parliament, there's going to be by-elections. And if the Lib Dems and Conservatives are even close to the same number of seats, you could easily end up with some seesawing.
Yeah.
So it could be very messy. It could. Yeah. It's much better not to have any Conservative MPs,
Yeah. Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. That is, and you make a very, very good point, which we've made on this channel many times. Also, before we start thinking about getting back into the EU, press reform and electoral reform is needed first.
But if we had those, we simplify the process massively.
Absolutely. Sean wants to know why Rishi and his missus look like ghosts in the photo behind Phil.
Because they weren't there.
Also, Phil's had them bumped off with his connections. And also, Paul is mentioning in the chat, at least Bannon has been ordered to jail next month. Something good, which is absolutely true. That is great news. Rishi to reintroduce fox hunting, hare coursing, and cockfighting to increase popularity.
I'll tell you another thing, though. Someone mentioned this morning. I'd forgotten about it till just now. Rishi Sunak's constituency is a military constituency. There's a lot of military family.
Catterick is there.
There's a lot. So this could be trouble for his own personal election chances.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. Just out the window here, there's a crane that's delivering some gravel. Catherine's dealing with it. It's just a bit distracting. Anyway, you can't hear it on the mic, can you?
No.
Peter Turner in the chat says, the guy in question time proved my point that you can count the benefits of Brexit on the fingers of one finger and have one finger left over. Oh, did you see that bit?
I saw that clip, yeah.
So this was Fiona Bruce.
And even then,
go on.
His hands seemed to go up quite unsurely as well. It's like it was like reluctant, wasn't it?
One
it wasn't
person
straight up. It wasn't straight up.
Who thinks their life has got better since Brexit? Like Brexit has improved their lives. One person in the entire audience, and he was a sort of youngish conservative, and he just sort of wibbled on about sovereignty and how we've got sovereignty now and how important that was. And everyone else in the audience was just groaning.
Exactly.
If you think about like 100 people in the audience, that's 99 to 1.
and it was a leave voting area.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chester was on the cusp, but it did actually vote for leave.
Yeah.
That's because there's a lot of bad wolves there. You know, people outside, we call people who don't come from Liverpool, we call them bad wolves. Like they're bad woolly backs.
Right.
So, shut up, you bad wool is a common insult in Liverpool. Now you know. David Smith in the chat says, I want Labour to dominate, but concerned that the scale of the Tories' mess makes their refusal to raise many taxes unrealistic. All our services are broken. Do you think they'll bring in a wealth tax or similar? They've said they're going to bring in willful taxes on oil and gas. They said they're going to put VAT on private schools. They've also said that they're going to, this is the big one for us, is they're going to go for all those tax loopholes. So you don't have to make a new tax. You don't have to raise the tax. You just have to collect the tax money that should be collected from the rich.
Yeah, there is another thing.
Evade it.
So I was reading, and I shall do a video on this in my own channel for tomorrow. I've already written it. There was another. So what happens is, so at the moment, the economy is completely broken.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, so it's like the economy hasn't moved for 16 years or not upwards. We also haven't had any serious investment for over a decade.
Yeah.
So we're in a situation where the economy's knackered, but we also need to catch up with the infrastructure development. So we need a shitload of money. And it's like, what do you do in a situation like that? And far too many people just get stuck in this, well, we need to tax more. And what economists do is they tend to come up with, well, no, actually, what we need to do is things fundamentally different. And some economists will come up with things that will be politically like utterly ridiculous. You can't do it. But, you know, there'll be some who'll come up with ones. It's like, okay, but we could do this. And so Chris Giles of the Financial Times was suggesting something. And it was to do with interest payments from the Bank of England. So they are paying at the moment 5.25% interest on all these like reserves that they require banks to hold. And there's a suggestion that they could, and they've already got the power to do this, by the way, the Bank of England. So it's already, Labour don't have to give them extra powers. They can already do this. It's just the governor of the Bank of England doesn't want to. But apparently there's a lot of support amongst other senior members of the Bank of England to do it. And it is simply to like tier those reserves in a way that the Bank of England only has to pay interest on a much smaller amount of it. So at the moment, we pay £23 billion on these interest payments. Like, even if you just halved that, that's straight away over 10 billion quid that you've got extra for spending, which is a lot. You know, and I was actually thinking about it. So what is the downside here? And I worried that there was like a political issue in that if you do this, commercial banks straight away make less because they're making a huge profit out of this. So their profits go down. So, and Giles himself suggested this, they would probably raise the interest rates on their own financial products. So there's me thinking, right, surely the first thing a Labour government wants to do is not raise mortgage rates because that's what it may have the effect of doing. But so I emailed Chris Giles, and to his credit, got back to me, and he said, well, no, because what would probably, he said he can't speak for the Bank of England, but he does talk to a lot of senior people, and he said, well, what will probably happen is the Bank of England would just reduce its own base rates to compensate. Yeah. So you could end up with a, and that, of course, would mean if they reduce their base rate, that would also mean even on the reserves they are paying interest on, they're paying less interest on it because the base rate's gone down.
Yeah.
So that would be a way and he says all they have to do, because the only thing stopping this happening right now is Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, doesn't want to do it. And the main reason he doesn't want to do it, he said in the article, it said two things. First of all, he said he didn't like it because it's a tax on banks. Well, my heart bleeds. And secondly, because we've never done it before.
Yeah.
As if that's a reason to not do something because we've never done it before. But it is done in some other countries, admittedly not really big. Although he did say the European Central Bank does it to some extent.
Right.
So he said, and obviously but you can't just get rid of Andrew Bailey because his contract goes till 2028. So he said, if Labour wanted to do this, they could force his hand by changing the guidance for the Monetary Policy Committee to include the line to have regard for the public finances.
Yeah.
Because this is £23 billion that is part of the public financing, that if they had to have due regard for it and they had this tool that could reduce that cost, they would have to do it. Particularly as there is a lot of support apparently within the Bank of England to do it. It's just the guy at the top who's going, no.
Yeah.
So there are ways. It's not a simple case of we need more money, therefore we have to tax more. Yeah. There are ways actually of drawing in a lot more money with other things.
Yeah.
Which is why it's always worth reading.
Close those loopholes because they know exactly where they are. Richard Gutters, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Where stopthetories.vote is unsure. Is the party campaigning hardest, most likely progressive challenger to the Conservatives? Brackets Lib Dems. I'm on a postal vote. What's your advice on this, Phil?
What was that? Sorry.
Where Stop the Tories is unsure. Should you be looking at,
because you're not voting yet. Wait until you're going to vote. Now, if it gets to the
saying
point,
he's on a postal vote.
Yeah, but you haven't got it now. Okay. It's like 4 weeks out. You'll get it about 2 weeks away. If it's still not like that, then obviously, when you are going to make your selection, check the date, check it then. If it still is unsure, then, usually what you'll find, because does anyone know anywhere where it's unsure? Oh, I bet Northwest Essex will be one. Hang on, I'm going to have to look it now. Keep talking about things. I will try and find it.
While Phil does that, I'm just going to say thank you to Ivan again. Thank you very much, Ivan. Labour have announced more appealing initiatives for the young to help first-time buyers. The Tories just want to bring back national service for the young. Yeah. The kid asked the other day, didn't he, when Rishi Sunak was at some kind of event, and the kid said to him, "Why do you hate young people?"
Yeah.
And that's just why does he hate young people? Well, because they don't vote Conservative and they hate everyone.
Well, they mostly don't vote at all. So that's why they don't ever even chase them, because they don't. Well, they do vote. They don't vote in. It's the small. It's not 18 to 24-year-olds is not a massive group of people anyway, and it votes in smaller than anywhere else. Right. So I'm looking at Northwest Essex, Kemi Badenoch's stomping ground. So at the moment, they are saying your tactical vote coming soon. We're waiting until more polling is released. So at the moment, if you were to look at the polls, because it does give you the information down there, you would probably say, and I know the people from Essex, so don't take this as anything right now. The people from Essex would say, no. But the polls say Labour would be the better bet at the moment. Now, if it gets to the point where you are, you have to make your decision, which isn't now, but in 2 weeks' time, let's say you get your postal ballot and you're going on holiday or something, so you have to post it then. If you come to the site and it still says coming soon, scroll down to the average of the polls and just pick the one that's ahead.
Yeah.
The other option you have, if you have access to it, if there are any betting odds for candidates in your constituency, look at the one that has the shortest odds that's not the Tory. That's another way. So do one of those two things, I would say. But what I would say is, no one needs the advice right now because no one can vote right now. So wait until you're going to vote, then check it. If it's still not saying, if it's still not saying 2 weeks out, it's basically a toss-up anyway. go down to the local polling chart and just pick the one that's closest.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like a plan. We've got another super chat in for 2 Swedish francs. Love your program. That's from Nicholas. Thank you we love you as well. Thank you for donating there. And Svax was just saying, Emma saying, thanks for watching. And Duke Vengeance saying to at the leg, who's been diagnosed with cancer. Really sorry to hear that. I hope you get all the treatment that you need. Let's hope they can do something about it, says Duke Vengeance. We've also got Charles in the chat saying, well, this has to be it. One election mistake that ends it. He may as well get the moving vans ordered for number 10. This is the gap to end them all, isn't it?
This is what happened in 1997. John Major, obviously, in that election was, we're going to win. We're absolutely going to win. But on the day itself, and he had to move out, it turned out they'd already moved out. His wife had already moved most of the stuff out already on the sly. So there was not very much left there. So they knew they were losing. They were absolutely knew they were losing. Yeah. You obviously have to put on a show during the election because you can't just give up, otherwise you'll lose even more seats. Yeah. So you have to do your best for your party, but they knew they were losing. And this time it's even more certain.
James is saying, sorry to be late, but I have to ask, capitals, what the bloody hell was Sunak thinking? My mum remembered when Michael Foot got castigated for not wearing a tie to the armistice commemorations.
I thought that was Jeremy Corbyn. Michael Foot was the donkey jacket. He may not have worn a tie either. He
wore the wrong jacket and that was it.
Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn didn't wear a tie at one thing. So he got bollocks for that.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. It's what I was saying. This news... This morning, it was on the front page of the Mirror. That was it. No other newspaper. I went on the BBC front page, and do you know what it said on the BBC homepage today? Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer back into campaigning after D-Day. No mention of the fact that Rishi Sunak started that yesterday. So it was absolutely covering up. Had it been a Labour Prime Minister, they wouldn't let go of this until they resigned.
Yeah.
They wouldn't ever let go. I mean, look at the way they've dealt with Starmer and Rayner over made-up things.
Yeah,
something like this, they would never let it go.
I'll take things that didn't happen for 10, please, Bob. Gillian Hope, thank you very much for the super chat. Just says great analysis. There you go. I think that's more for Phil rather than me. And Business Cat said, on the quantitative easing interest point, does that mean Liz Truss crashing the economy not only cost the 50 to 60 billion pound injection, but we've also had 2 years of paying out 23 billion in interest because the interest rates went up?
The interest rates were going up anyway, it has to be said, but they would have gone up more so as a result. Yeah. So some of that money will be down to Liz Truss as well, yes.
Well, I mean, on the BBC website now, if you go, it does say Rishi Sunak apologises for leaving D-Day events early, calling it a mistake. But yeah, I mean, the newspapers would have absolutely crucified a Labour leader doing that. And
it would have been every day. It wouldn't have just been one day. It would have been every day.
And we watched all of Question Time last night, and I should have totted up the number of times that Fiona Bruce interrupted anyone who wasn't the Tory, but didn't interrupt the Tory.
Yeah,
it was quite interesting. Like, she kept on cutting in and saying, but what about this? What about that? And it was like, careful, your bias is showing.
Well, the thing is, I don't know what they guessed on it last night, but it is very common for there to be 3 right-wing commentators against maybe 1 left-wing and 1 neutral or 2 left-wing commentators on it. And yet she still feels the need to shore up the Tories' support.
Yeah. One angry pagan saying Labour have apparently committed to ending badger culling, as the scientific evidence says we should. Right. I hope they bring the farmers in on the conversation and show them the evidence instead of imposed. Yeah, fantastic. And also, Paul reminding us in the chat there, I hope you've all seen Alex Jones crying because he's broke. Lol. Yes, it is absolutely hilarious to watch him cry. He owes the Sandy Hook families $1.5 billion now. David Smith says, Sunak is weirdly bad at politics. I'm not personally offended by him leaving early, although I do think it's classless. But this is exactly what Tory voters will hate. Yeah. How did his advisors let it happen? Do you think that Leighton Crosby, or his name is just setting him?
He's not involved. He's going.
Is he
He's
not?
not. No, it's Isaac Levidow.
Levidow. Sorry, I'm getting them mixed up. So do you reckon Isaac
Do you know?
Levidow's just setting up to fail? Just hates
No,
him.
I'd be amazed if he even knew that they was doing this. Like, I cannot believe that CCHQ even knew this was going on. This must have just been Sunak's close team or something. But even then, I don't know, because like Tim Montgomery, who founded Conservative Home, and he was tearing his hair out last night. He was trying to think, well, maybe there was some. He thought maybe there was like a family tragedy that we don't know about. But he says, but if not, this is insane. He said he tried to ring around his contacts in Downing Street, and they wouldn't even respond to him. They wouldn't even get back to him. And it's because like they don't know what to say that doesn't make this worse. Now, if they were all in on it, they'd already have their lines ready. So either Sunak really did this without telling very many people, or they all thought it would be fine and are surprised that there was a backlash. In which, because I've already said before, it's not just Sunak. His close advisors are also really terrible at politics. It's quite incredible how he's managed to, because you can have a politician that's not a very good politician. As long as they're surrounded themselves with people who are, they'll come across all right.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you don't let them loose on people asking rogue questions, as long as it's all very carefully managed, they'll come across all right, as long as they can remember their lines.
But this is going to be the line now, isn't it? When we're talking about, you meet someone who says they're going to vote Conservative in this election, and your first instinct is going to be like, really, after what happened at D-Day, like you're really going to vote for them? We had a guy come around this morning, a workman who's going to be doing some work for us over the summer in our kitchen, and he said, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I run a YouTube channel, so I guess I'm a YouTuber." He says, "What's it on?" And I said, "Oh, politics." And the first thing he said is like, "Oh my God, like what was Rishi Sunak thinking?" There's just some random bloke. He's just like, that is the first thing he said. I'm not into politics. I don't really pay much attention to it, but what was he thinking? This is going to resonate through the whole campaign.
It's the worst thing he's done. Like, politically, it's not the worst thing his government's done. I mean, no one's died apart from maybe embarrassment at CCHQ. But it's the worst thing he's done politically, easily. So insanely stupid.
Yeah.
Insane.
One angry pagan saying, honestly, I want to see more Green MPs in Parliament. Many of my fellow pagans are Green and their ideology, and they have to start somewhere. Yeah, look, given the choice between a Tory MP or a Green MP or a Lib Dem MP, I will take the Green. I will take the Lib Dem. I would much rather have them as the opposition or them, as potentially a future government than the bloody Tories who are only in it for themselves. And people keep saying, oh, they're all the same. And here's what I'm going to say to that from now on. When Labour get in, they help everyone. They didn't just help the poor when they got in 97. They did help the poor. But they also helped rich people get richer as well. They helped everyone in society. The Tories only ever help themselves. That is it. They look after their own. And that's why they hate young people, because young people are never going to vote for them.
Well, young people have no money, so they have no respect for them. Really, it's a difference of aspiration.
Yeah.
Like, Keir Starmer uses the word aspiration a lot, and people associate that with like Thatcher's view of aspiration. But Thatcher's view of aspiration was the individual doing well for themselves at the expense of others. Labour was born from an aspiration, but an aspiration to raise up millions of people's living standards. At the time, it was the working class. But now, as a part, well, in no small part as a result of what trade unions and Labour have achieved in the 20th century, we don't really need to talk about the working class so much, because people from working class backgrounds have been able to go to university, for example, and or even if not going to university, have been able to actually get on in whatever career they've done and do really well.
Yeah.
That was not the case in the 19th century. It was quite impossible. If you were working class, your kid would follow in your footsteps.
Yeah.
Unless they joined like the military or something.
Yeah.
And they would still be working class, but being shot at the same time.
But what Labour did really, really well is opened up that social mobility while they were in power, and the Tories have just taken it away. And I think that those old school Tories, the One Nation Tories, even Margaret Thatcher, would be horrified at what the Tories have become. Because the part, especially Major and Thatcher, they were state school kids who, did well for themselves in their own respects. But like, they believed in social mobility. I might not agree with them on any other thing or whatever, but they believe that if you work hard and you're in the right place at the right time, whatever, you can get ahead in life. The Tories have put the kibosh on that, and now everyone, as I keep pointing out, everyone you see on TV, everyone, it all went to school together. Emma Price, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, I think Sunak is just so arrogant. He's more similar to Trump than Boris was. That's pretty true. Craig is saying, honestly, Starmer needs to buy a lottery ticket at this point. And also, I like this from Levish, who says, I'd vote Green if they banned plastic bottles and cats. Just banned cats. Random, but
I suggested in a common WhatsApp group we have with Graham that cats were the Tories of the pet world, and it went down like a lead balloon.
It's true though. Dogs have owners, cats have butlers. That's the way it is. But what I like about cats and what I respect about cats is if you don't treat them very well, they piss off and they go and get another butler. Whereas a dog, no matter how horrible you are to the dog, they'll stay with you. So you get some really unsavory characters owning dogs because they know what they can get away with.
We had that thing yesterday, didn't we? Where a Reform UK candidate's been outed as someone who was convicted for kicking the crap out of a dog. And they were only the second most despicable politician yesterday.
Yeah.
Thanks to Rishi Sunak.
Kicking a dog. Well, going back to badgers, I mean, the Tories love that because they're like, oh, can we just kill an animal that doesn't deserve to be dead? Yeah, we can just do that. Doesn't need to be dead. No, we're just... Okay, cool. Can we get up on horses and chase it through the forest? And rip it apart with dogs? No. We had to just put down like traps and stuff and poison. Oh, where's the fun in that? Say the Tories. And don't forget, there's a huge ecological disaster that's happened in the UK. Is this to do with grouse shooting? Like they need the moors to not have any vegetation on them and all this, so they can see the grouse and shoot them. And there's vast tracts of land in Yorkshire that's owned by little Lord Fauntleroy for him to go grouse shooting when it could be used for much more better purposes. At least rewilding it so it's better for the environment and the animals, the flora and fauna that live here. Tim that in the chat is saying working class families don't often have the knowledge of how to succeed to pass that on to their children. I asked my parents how to be rich and they said work hard and suggested being a plumber.
Don't get too rich as a plumber though, because then your brain goes to mush, you turn into a Brexiteer like Mullins.
Yeah, but he was a massive Remainer, and he had the bollocks the Brexit thing on his Pimlico plumbing, and then he's gone all
the money gets you in the end, doesn't it? The money gets you in the end. Rots your brain.
Yeah, There's a lot of comments just about how stupid Rishi Sunak's been over this. Larry the Cat's pretty good. Cats are a little sociopathic, says Alan Walker, and Cats are friendly, says Vendetta. They just know when you're a C unit. Fair enough. That's why they don't like me. And Viv, I've arrived late to hear Graham grousing. I'm with you, mate. Yeah, I mean, that land could be so much better used than Tories murdering defenceless animals for sport. Gotta worry. Is this the last days of the Roman Empire or something? Or is it
feels like it, doesn't it? It's just we sort of had a little bit of this in '97. The Tories sort of had been in too long, and rather than refocus and become disciplined to try and win again, it was just like the last days of Sodom and Gomorrah. Except it's on another level now. It's the same thing, you know. I always said the worst thing that could happen, and I said this probably a couple of years ago. The worst thing that could happen is that the Tories realise they're going to lose, because then they'll really go to town salting the earth, which is what they've been doing.
Yeah.
You know, hospital buildings and school buildings and other public buildings falling down. Absolutely no plan. So they're just leaving it for Labour. They're leaving everything for Labour.
Yeah.
In the belief, not just because they can't be asked, but because they know it makes it more difficult for Labour, which is why, you know, I would love it if Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves were to say, well, we need to fix this and we need to fix it quite quickly. You're making it more and more expensive. That just means we're going to have to tax the rich even more. Because when people like Rishi Sunak and Jacob Rees-Mogg say, Labour are going to tax you more, my response to them is, no, they're going to tax you more.
Yeah. Got a good comment here from who was saying about St. Paul saying that this is Peter Turner. St. Paul said the love of money, not the money itself, is the
Yeah.
root of
Yeah.
all kinds of evil, which is true. And people who obsess over their wealth, there's an old line. I think it was Kurt Vonnegut, apparently the author, was in a party with some billionaire there who was bragging about how much money they had, and Kurt Vonnegut said, "But I've got something that you will never ever have." And he says, "What's that?" And he said, "I've got enough."
Mm.
And this is the way that a lot of these very, very rich people
Yeah.
just think. And it's not enough for them to be rich. They have to screw over other people. They have
Yeah.
to take this sadistic
Because that's what it's doing. Because
someone else suffering.
there's a point at which your life isn't any better because you've got more wealth.
Yeah.
Like when you're stuffing it away, like just to avoid paying tax on it, you're not doing anything with the money.
Yeah. Alan Walker says, "Want to be a billionaire? Fastest way is being amoral." Well, I mean, don't try and be a billionaire if you're an entertainer, because Paul McCartney has only just tipped over the line into being a billionaire. So basically, if you want to be a billionaire as an actor or a singer or a dancer or whatever in entertainment, you literally have to be in the Beatles and still be alive.
And yes, live a ripe old life.
And have Beyonce cover one of your songs. It is just, yeah, it's hilarious. We've got Ellie Byrne saying, "I think Sunak is trying to get revenge on the party." That's valid.
But the thing is, the tragic thing is, though, all that would assume that he knew that this was a really stupid idea. But the reality is, as fun as he actually didn't realise there was anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
He thought to himself, "Well, I'll turn up." Again, that apology thing. I turned up for the British bit. No, it wasn't a British thing. It was an Allied thing. I mean, the other thing I'm seeing now, so like a lot of political leaders that were at that event yesterday, they've produced a promotional video of the event. So in Zelensky's promotional video that he's released, Keir Starmer's in it, not Rishi Sunak, because Rishi Sunak went there to meet him.
Yeah.
Like mad. Boris Johnson would never have turned down the chance of a free day off. We didn't have to do anything, but he got to rub shoulders with the great and the good in the world.
Yeah.
Or the Western world. He never would have turned. And that's the thing. I mean, that political instinct would tell you that yesterday was a free hit, a completely free hit. Impossible to mess it up. And it still gets me that he managed to mess it up so badly that it's his worst ever political mistake.
Do you think he'll top it? Do you think there's what could, we've only got a couple of minutes left. What could possibly top this? What could be?
Unless it turns out, I don't know. I actually don't know. It's really,
because you think about it, like even if he killed someone, it might be someone that like the Gamity Brexit people don't like. They'll be like, "Oh well, never mind."
I mean, at this point, it's really, the polls next week will be spectacular because it was already bad before yesterday. The polls were already bad. So we had a number of polls released yesterday. They're showing, again, a widening of the polls, not a narrowing. But also, because now some pollsters like YouGov, who don't normally do this, they've been including undecided voters into it.
Yeah.
And because what is happening over the next few weeks, those undecided voters are now deciding.
Yeah.
And what we're finding in the detail, they're not deciding to vote Conservative. They're actually more deciding to vote Reform UK. That's where Reform UK's big boost in the polls have been coming from in the last day or two. Like people are going, "Oh, Labour lost this amount and Reform UK gained this amount. Oh, so it's Reform UK taking votes off Labour." It's like, no, if you look in the detail, no, it's not. It's undecideds. Because, if you add up all the people who say they're going to vote for this party and that party, and it adds up to 100%, of course, that 100% is not the same 100% in the next poll because undecideds keep mucking about with it. The undecideds are deciding to vote for Reform UK rather than the Conservatives. So imagine what this is going to do to some more undecideds between the Conservatives and Reform UK. So the polls next week are going to be quite interesting. And I don't think it's going to be in Sunak's favour. This is a proper shit the bed moment.
Yeah. Victoria says, "My grandfather left school at 14 in the 1920s, and he said anyone who worked shouldn't vote Tory as they don't help anyone who works. He was horrified and his children voting for Thatcher in the 1980s. Absolutely right. They only help themselves. They only think about themselves. They only can think about themselves. I don't think they are actually capable of the emotional intelligence required to put themselves in somebody else's
It's the
shoes.
party of the self. I mean, it's like the Gordon Gekko greed is good mantra. That is the Conservatives' rallying call.
Okay, so I'm going to be back at 7:30 tonight for the big debate, the big BBC debate with Penny Mordaunt, Angela Rayner, Stephen Flynn, Daisy Cooper, Carla Denyer, Nigel Farage, unfortunately, and Rum Ap Eof. I'm probably pronounced that terribly badly.
Oh, sorry, apply, yeah. It's a bit of a shame they didn't have Liz Savile Roberts.
Yeah.
That's easier.
Rin. It'll be Rin, won't it? Because a U is an I in
well, unfortunately, Welsh is one of those. For those who aren't in Britain, basically, if you don't start learning it from about 6 months old, you're basically knackered.
Well, you can't say the certain sounds you can't make if you haven't been taught it from birth. But it's great language. And when they say, we're not so different, you and I.
Yeah, it's very good.
In Welsh. Anyway, Phil, thank you very much. Not you, Phil. Different Phil Wilkinson. Deadline for nominating candidates, Tories short, question mark. The deadline's today.
It's in less than 2 hours. It's 4 p.m. today. And then they have to announce them all at 5 p.m. Yeah. There was Richard. There's even yesterday. So Richard Holden's done a right chicken. There's been quite a few chicken runs. But he's chicken run from up where you are down to the south of England, 300 miles away. Yeah. And the local association aren't happy about it.
This and even yesterday, his constituency's disappeared. He's northwest Durham, I think.
But I mean, it's to be fair, the boundary changes. Yeah. So you can understand someone going, well, I'll move a bit over there, not 300 miles away. But the local association, for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason is. I don't know whether I agree with it or not. I'm making no comment. But for whatever reason, they don't like it. And they have said, oh, there's precedent for us to be able to reject it. And we need a new one. And I actually responded to, mate, you've got less than 24 hours to withdraw his nomination papers and put new ones in. That's even if you get Rishi Sunak to pay attention to you. So whatever precedent you think you've got, I don't think works within 24 hours. So I think he's got his safe seat. So Richard Holden is going to end up being the MP for a constituency where the local activists hate him. So I don't think there'll be a lot of door knocking going on. I'm going to have to look it up to see how safe it is. Because maybe it's not that safe.
So it's Billericay. Is that the place?
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah, that could be it.
I thought that was a made up place.
There's lots of made up places in this country.
Brigadoon.
There's some mad place names in this. If you look down the constituency list.
I've insulted someone who lives in Billericay now, but
not their fault. They didn't name it.
Hogmanay. That's not a real place.
I don't know.
Places of time. Anyway, Sean is saying, have a lovely rest of the day. You're all gorgeous human beings, and I would like to reiterate that. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks very much to Phil for giving up his time to chat on the last agenda on Labour Social. So we're going to be coming Politics Social after the shows today. Pretty much everything's going to stay the same, except it's going to be called something slightly different, and I've got to redo the animations so they don't say Labour anymore. We've got to keep the same logo, though, so you don't get too confused. So 7:30, we'll be doing a watch party of the BBC debate, and then at 9 o'clock, we'll segue straight into the Labour Social, which I'll be trying to organise while I'm discussing stuff about what these people are saying. An hour and a half, do you think that's long enough for 7 people to get their points across, Phil?
No, it'll just be another slanging match, I suspect. And it'll go multiple ways. I mean, don't imagine it's everyone ganging up on Mordaunt, because the SNP are more interested. I mean, Labour are their main challenger. Arguably a little bit Plaid as well, but I don't expect them to play anything. I don't think they're going to play hardball as such. I think they'll just try and get their points across.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Greens and the SNP, it's Labour in their sights, not the Tories.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be a bit of a free-for-all. See how it goes.
Thanks very much to Sean there for the £5 super chat, and Christine Cash over in America is saying Politics Social. Yeah, we're calling it Politics Social. There's a few reasons for this. One of which is that we'll open up the channel to getting people on to talk to us who aren't necessarily Labour. Also, you know, it means we're not beholden to supporting Labour in everything they do. We don't want to be a mouthpiece of the government, do we, Phil?
No,
In a
I'll
month's
just
time?
I'll just say at the end though. Now we don't want to go just from one MRP poll, but I've just found it's Basildon and Billericay, and according to YouGov's latest MRP poll, Labour are knocking on their door. It don't look that safe to me. It does not look that
Cool.
safe to me. So if he gives his local constituents the ump, and they don't go turn out for him door knocking,
Yeah.
and they end up losing it, they'll obviously blame Sunak for giving him a shit candidate. I mean, he'll be gone anyway, so you don't care.
Oh well, what a shame. Not. Anyway, there's the new politics social ident at the top there. It looks exactly the same. Don't worry about it. And hopefully I'll see you at 7:30 tonight. If not, 9:00 for the last Labour social before we change the name of the channel. And until then, thank you so much for watching. Thanks to all our socialites in the chat. You're going to be main socialites. Don't worry about that. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks to Phil. And until next time, I'll say "'cause I like" on the way out. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.